Welcome back to the show, guys and gals. I hope you're having a lovely week. That's right, the intrepid people's champion himself, Shanghai Pete, me, has once again braved the horrors of the real world and done pitched battle with the forces of darkness at my stupid day job in order to bring you another episode of our wonderful program. So, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. I was supposed to have my FF7 Rebirth review done by now, and I do not. I do have an update, however, not to worry. Tragically for us all, I got put on call for most of March due to a bunch of server issues at my day job, and as a result, I've had about zero free time. And in the few minutes a day I had for playing video games, in between sleeping underneath piles of Cat 5 cable at the office or eating leftover DoorDash, I quickly came to the following conclusion. FF7 is not very fun, and I don't really care about finishing it. I was doing okay until I got to Costa del Sol and I was forced into doing some bizarre Japanese dating nightmare simulator, and I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. I'm going to, though, at some point, eventually, I promise, and I will put out a review, but it's probably going to be a few more days at least, because in the rare event I have a few minutes of free time, I want to use it for something fun, like playing the new Dark Forces remaster, which is fucking awesome, by the way, if you haven't played it yet. Super sick. And not making myself miserable by playing a game I'm not enjoying. Now, in fairness, I am liking Rebirth more than Part 1 to the extent it's capable of being liked, and it's definitely much better. Now, keep in mind that I gave Part 1 a 4 out of 10 if you're trying to discern what I mean by definitely much better. Anyway, I should be off this nightmare rotation by April, at which point, by hook or by crook, we will be getting deep inside Rebirth, but Jesus, guys, do not get a job. It's really awful. Enough about my stupid life, though. It's time to get deep inside, and not even gainful employment will prevent me from doing that. Here we go. Just time for a quick recap of the month, which has been both fantastic and extraordinarily excruciating. Let's start with some of the worst news. As you've no doubt heard by now, Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball, Chrono Trigger, Dragon Quest, and tons of other amazing stuff has died. According to VGC, he died at age 68 after suffering from an acute subdural hematoma, a type of bleeding near the brain. There ain't no other way to say it. This sucks. We lost a great one, geez. Moment of silence. Next up, we should at least mention Helldivers 2, which has somehow managed to make most people forget about Palworld already. Fortunately for me, I've long been far too addicted to Darktide, so Helldivers had no power over me. What about you guys? You playing it? How do you feel about it? Is it awesome? Bobby is playing it and he loves it, so y'all let us know. Moving on, it looks like Nintendo, instead of going with a hero arc for 2024 and releasing the Switch successor around, now, they've actually gone in the opposite direction and decided on a villain arc. That's right, they've wasted no time and already shut down not just Yuzu, the popular and very good, I can say from personal experience, Switch emulator, beloved by millions, but also the 3DS emulator, Citra. They accomplished this in typical Nintendo Corpo fashion by suing the ever-loving shit out of everyone they possibly could until someone failed to come up with enough money to stave off their litigious attack dogs. That someone, in this case, being the Yuzu guys, who Nintendo abused to the tune of about $2.4 million fucking dollars. Holy shit. The good news is that the code for Yuzu and Citra has been public for a while, so I don't expect you'll need to wait too long for new forks of it to start popping up. The bad news, though, is that yet another group of dedicated fans, hobbyists, and probably fucking geniuses just had their entire life's work, and likely their entire lives themselves, thoroughly ruined by a big cock-swinging corpo because they were guilty of the high crimes of possibly, maybe, potentially costing big old Nintendo like $5. Wow. Good thing our court system is here to bludgeon their lives into destitution and eternal poverty. Sounds like they deserved it. On the upside, this kind of behavior is pretty good for ensuring that myself and probably millions of others will never pay for a Nintendo game again, as long as we can pirate it. So, good on that, I suppose. Moving on to slightly more recent news, this past week or so, we also heard even more about Skull and Bones failing catastrophically, which is funny. Gored to death even worse than Suicide Squad, apparently, which is also funny. I love this because I love when corpos lose, you should too. On the flip side of things, though, we also sadly have yet another tale of customers losing in this tragic saga of the Star Wars Battlefront launch. Yikes, good God in heaven. The best way I've heard this described is a Steam review where someone asked how Aspyr, the dev, somehow managed to release an unfinished version of a finished game, which is maybe the most accurate thing I've ever heard. Yep, barely a week since what's being called by many as probably one of the worst launches of all time, and our classic Battlefront games are still absolutely stuffed to the gills with all manner of bugs, crashes, and of course woefully inadequate server capacities. We're talking 3 64-player servers for over 10,000 players. Wow, it's hard to care that little. Battlefield Classic Collection, Shanghai Pete does not recommend. And speaking of stuff I do not recommend, for our main story tonight, we'll need to talk about another game discovered to be a poorly veiled debacle on launch, Dragon's Dogma 2. Or in other words, yet another case of the tried and true classic Corpo business model. Let's see how much they'll put up with. Y'all know this one, most recently used in the new Call of Duty, Skull and Bones, even Redfall. It's easy to see why it keeps getting implemented and devs try to constantly pull this shit over on everyone. Because sometimes, a lot of times, it fucking works. And what's most infuriating is when they do it with a game that not only many of us were looking forward to, but also a game that by all accounts was about to be fucking awesome as well. Figures. So let's start off at the beginning with the reviews. What the fuck is this shit exactly? Well, Dragon's Dogma 2 is Capcom's almost well-received sequel to another single-player action RPG of the same name from all the way back in 2013. Many people, including myself, really like that first one, so you take that combined with the current single-player game drought and, well, you had a lot to be excited about in DD2. It's not a super huge departure from the original, which I count as a good thing, and seems to be a pleasant mix of stuff like Monster Hunter and Elden Ring as well, which we love. In other words, this shit was looking like it was going to be a banger. From what we've heard, the story is good, the NPCs and companions are great, the world design and map implementation are vast and engrossing, and by all accounts, the combat system is fantastic. Even the earlier reviews were looking good. We got 5 out of 5 from Eurogamer, 8 out of 10 from the boys at IGN, the most unbiased boys in the biz, a fat 9 out of 10 from Game Informer, who I remember having to sell their subscriptions when I managed a GameStop, but other than that, I'm kind of surprised they're still around, actually. A respectable 3.5 out of 10 was offered from Digital Trends, whoever they are, and of course Kotaku, in their dogged pursuit of being utterly useless, didn't score it, but instead called it a game unburdened by any influence, save that of its predecessor. Well, thanks idiots, that's very helpful. But overall, things were looking up for this newest action RPG from the corrupt corpo criminals at Capcom. That is, until the game actually came out and oops, Metacritic began to show the dreaded Metascore versus user score disparity. In this case, 86 versus 5.4. Ooh, seems something ain't right in there. So what is it? Well, at this point I'd say the primary reasons Dragon's Dogma 2 is getting metaphorically fucksored are the positively egregious to the point of being downright silly microtransactions and its performance. The CPU load is just unacceptable and no one has any idea how long it'll be till we see some, if any, improvements. Now, why is that, you might be thinking? Certainly a developer with as much experience and money as Capcom must have figured out optimization for modern hardware at this point, right? Well, maybe they did, but we'll likely never know because they packed this motherfucker full of everyone's favorite boy, Denuvo, the king of DRM software that allows pirates to have a superior experience to legitimate customers due to the insane performance hit its implementation in games has been proven to cause. It's always great to see a dev who will happily fuck over their legitimate, dedicated customers, providing they can also make a few pirates sad as well. That's awesome. But moving on to the microtransaction side of things, I'm sure you've all seen the screenshots already, but let's take another look because I love when people put this stuff together. Ooh, very nice, Capcom. Over $40 of garbage, all to help you not play the game or play it less. It's all here, G's. Fast travel regions, res spells, fake virtual currency, appearance customization, needless cosmetics. You get the idea. In fact, if I add all this garbage up to my cart, including the game, we're looking at about $120. I don't think I need to point out, though I am anyway, just how absurd it is to pay an amount like that in order to play just a single-player offline adventure game, even a supposedly very good one. Of course, with any microtransaction scandal, we've got the inevitable army of ball-bobbing sycophants who happily sacrifice their dignity and sense of self-respect to run interference for their corpo masters, the very same people who are at this moment currently robbing the shit out of them. Wow, it must be awful not to feel shame. So what are they saying this time? Largely the same nonsense they always do. Actually, cosmetics don't affect the game, blah, 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 they aren't really a factor, etc., etc. But as I keep repeating, it's not really about that. It doesn't matter how much or how little microtransactions may technically affect the game they're in. Now, the primary issue is that simply engaging with many of these microtransactions is enough to damage a game or that part of the industry landscape, even in small increments, because even if it's just a horse or just cosmetics, the thing is, you're still sending the developer a message when you engage with them, loud and clear, that says, yes fucking please, I will tolerate this. If you make more, there's a good chance I'll buy that too. Too much of this shit here in Dragon's Dogma 2, and what the fuck do you think Dragon's Dogma 3 is gonna look like? It's not always about the individual effect of paying real-world money to fast travel or whatever. The issue isn't always what's for sale. It's that if people keep buying what's for sale, as a developer, you're gonna keep making that stuff for sale. Like, what do y'all think market research is? It's this. It's figuring out how much bullshit people will put up with. And if people put up with too much of it here in Dragon's Dogma 2, even if none of it technically affects the game experience, all you're doing is signing the death warrant for Dragon's Dogma 3 and Resident Evil 9 or whatever other childhood dreams Capcom sees fit to torture us with the defilement of in the coming years. In many cases, you could actually argue that this more minor shit is more insidious than the insane over-the-top pay $15 to win the game type shit. At least that stuff is more honest about what it's doing. Anyone buying that garbage likely knows exactly what they're doing and doesn't care. But how many people might engage with DD2 microtransactions because they just thought, well, that was the only way they could change their character appearance? It's nauseating. And that's not even mentioning the obvious basic fact that, hey, maybe customers are just fucking sick of living in a crazed fever dream where we're constantly asked to shell out even more money past the purchase price for an already full price single player fucking game. Maybe. In closing, to echo PC Gamer, the entire situation just fucking sucks. Especially because, as we mentioned at the top of the piece, the game looks like it actually was going to be really fucking good. But don't listen to anyone who says Capcom isn't really to blame or it's not the reviewer's fault for not mentioning the microtransactions. Fuck that, they're both at fault. I'm going to be pissed at PC Gamer for giving Dragon's Dogma 2 an 89 and getting my hopes up for a while, and it'll be even longer before I trust them again, if ever. And as for Capcom, like, I don't know, what can I really say? Like any corpo, they just keep pushing, this is going to keep happening. Get ready for Dragon's Dogma 3, boys! And lastly, to Capcom, if you guys are pissed that people are talking about your garbo frame rates and abusive, misleading microtransactions instead of discussing the game itself, well, that's your own fucking fault. Alright, that's our show. Thank you all so much for chilling tonight and spending this little bit of your free time here with us at the channel. We love you today, we love you all the way. So, what do y'all think? Will Dragon's Dogma 2 weather this storm and turn out to be something we're all enjoying in a few weeks? Or do you think that it's fucked forever? Are you playing it already, maybe, and you think that we should too? Let us know in the comments down below. As for FF7 Rebirth, I'll get to it eventually, I swear.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Yup, woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up.